When it comes to the level of success that you will experience with your business, it really comes down to the level of decision making that you're going to be making. How good are the decisions that you're going to be making? And a decision is a conclusion that you come to after a series of analysis, looking at different options, and so on. It's a little bit different from making a choice. A choice typically has very little in terms of consequence. It's like, would you want your shoes to be red or blue or white or black? That's a choice. But a decision is a commitment to a path after analysis and acting on that commitment. So when it comes to the actual decisions that you make, you have to be very, very aware of whether you're making a good decision or one that's going to actually pull you away or even crush all the progress that you've made. And we can see this in an analogy that comes to mind for me is like building a sandcastle. It can take a very long time and meticulous effort to build a very nice sandcastle. And one decision to step on it or to crush it can just ruin the whole thing. And just like sandcastles, you can spend a ton of time building a business that you're very proud of, and one mistake in your personal life, or whether it's a scandal or something, where it's a very poor decision, it can just ruin everything. So it becomes very critical for us to not only make very good decisions, but for us to avoid making bad decisions. And I want to talk a lot about decision making because there's three properties of it that I'm going to talk about. It's going to be input-output asymmetry. It's going to be decision half-life, and also second and third order consequences in a different order. So it'll probably be input-output asymmetry, second and third order consequences, nth order consequences, and then half-life. But I wanted to talk about this because I'm currently jet lagged, I'm currently sick, and I haven't had any sleep from last night. And as I go to make these strategic decisions in my business, like for example, I have an email open in front of me. How I respond to that email is going to be a micro decision that I make. And as I'm writing it, I'm realizing that my head isn't clear. As I'm making this video, I'm realizing that my thoughts aren't as sharp. And so the outputs that are going to come from this state is going to be decisions that aren't as optimal as it could be. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to probably take a step back and not do so much of like critical decision making. I shouldn't be making critical decisions in this state is what I'm trying to tell you. And because of these three properties. So input-output asymmetry is the idea that for every unit of effort, every unit of time, energy, or resources that you put into this decision, what are going to be the outputs of that? Is it going to be asymmetric? So if I put in just 1 unit, is there going to be 100 units that come out? So for example, if I set up a marketing, if I make the decision to create this marketing, if I decide all the elements within that marketing system, and I put $1, let's say it's advertising, and I put $1 into advertising, will it output $100? So that's an example of a positive input-output asymmetry. And it could also be a very negative input-output asymmetry. But before we get to that, let's talk about input-output asymmetry where it's still positive, yet let's say I put in $200 into advertising and it generates $1. So that's an example of input-output asymmetry that is, not in our favor. And negative input-output asymmetry would be one where you put in 1 unit of whatever resource you want to measure, time, energy, resource, attention, and it generates something that actually detracts you from your goals. So in the example of $200 of advertising, we got $1 out, but that's still positive and forward motion. Whereas what I'm talking about is, let's say we put $1 in and it generates like backlash, and it actually harms our business. So there can be a lot of negative input-output asymmetry. And we really want to avoid those because typically the negative consequences can be a lot higher in terms of output than the positive ones. We could put a lot of effort into finding the input-output asymmetries that have the highest positive yield, but it's going to be nowhere in comparison to actions and decisions that you can make that can completely destroy your career, So you have to really watch out for asymmetric inputs and outputs where it's negative and it can have the potential for very large negative outputs. All right, so that's the first one. The second one is going to be nth order consequences or second, third order consequences. When we make a decision, we typically think of the first order consequence. So for example, when I buy a TV, the first order consequence is that I'm going to watch the TV. Or the first order consequence might be that I pay Walmart or whoever $500 and I get a TV. That's the consequence. And it sounds great, like, hey, I get a TV, I'm all happy. But then the next order consequence, which would be the second order consequence, would be that you have to watch that TV. Now you're spending time sitting there watching the TV, and that's the second order consequence. And as humans, we do a very bad job at thinking of the nth order consequences, the things that are going to come as a result of that decision we made. So not only am I going to watch that TV, now I'm probably going to be in a bit of a brain fog after I watch that TV, or if I watch it late at night, my sleep's going to get disturbed, and so I'm going to wake up the next morning without as much rest as I could have. And because of that, I go into the office or wherever, and I'm a bit annoyed, so I either message a staff of mine like in a very curt way, or I don't get to them at all. So all these decisions or all these consequences come as a result of the initial decision just to buy a TV. So when you make decisions, think of what down the road, what are the consequences that are going to come? And this is not something that you'll know at the start of every decision. Like, it comes with experience. You start seeing patterns and recognizing that if you make this choice, it's going to lead to these outcomes in the future. All right, and finally, it's going to be half-life. All right, so when you make a decision and there's a consequence, what is the half-life of that consequence, or what's the half-life of that decision? But really what I mean is, what is the half-life of that consequence? So for example, the joy and the pleasure of purchasing that TV has a very short half-life, maybe about 5 minutes where you feel really happy, maybe an hour, you watch a show, and then that half-life fades away. Now, what's the half-life of being rude to an employee of yours? It can be months, or it can even cost like you get the idea. The timeline, the downward effects, and how long that effect stays in place is also something that we need to consider. It goes back to the idea of investments. A lot of these ideas are from Intelligent Investor. You're looking for decisions or investments that yield you high positive input-output, investments or decisions that have pay dividends, have down the road positive effects for you, and also that pay dividends for a long time. So that's what we're looking for when it comes to making the best decisions for your business. So what I challenge you to do is to think of, when it comes to making decisions, because all business is making hard decisions. And if you're in a state where you're not making hard decisions, you probably aren't making forward momentum. So when it comes to the time for you to make decisions, start exercising these 3 mental models. Start putting them into practice, start exercising them so that the next time you make another decision, and the next time you make another decision, these become clearer to you and you can make better and hopefully bigger and better decisions in the future. So hopefully you found this video really helpful. If you're into like marketing for a local service business at all, particularly dentistry, I have a free course where I talk about a lot of the important decisions that private practice owners have to make in order to grow through word of mouth. So if that's something that interests you, check it out. I'll put it in the description. Otherwise, thanks for watching.